Hello, this is Scarlet and Rage podcast, and we are coming to you today on a very sad Sunday evening, Monday morning when you are getting this. And that was not a good weekend for the Buckeyes. That's not what we were hoping to see in Eugene, Oregon over the weekend. So many things to discuss, so much soul searching going on in Columbus and among Buckeye Nation all over right now. And just absolutely a difficult weekend in almost every way for Ohio State. Rage, I know it was a tough weekend on you. I know that you are really reeling today and having a tough one. So just give us an insight into the emotions of this weekend for you.
I I don't know anymore. I sit here and, today I actually went back and listened back to our Cotton Bowl postgame show that was released about 9 months ago.
I noticed a
Actually,
few
10
people
months
went
ago.
back and listened to that, by the way, because a couple of people commented on that. One of an old time listener that I hadn't seen in a while made a comment on that Cotton Bowl. I think it was one of our Michigan fans made a comment on that Cotton Bowl video today. So you weren't the only one going back to watch it. That's funny.
Well, our fan base are the ones that spurred me. I've noticed a whole bunch of people commenting on that video, so I went back to listen to it. And everyone, if you haven't listened to that, everything still holds true about Ryan Day. I don't know what there is to be said anymore. I'm kind of at a loss for words, and I'm really defeated. Michael, I sent you that movie clip from earlier. Did you happen to watch it?
I watched about half of it, but I got the point. You're feeling pretty you're feeling pretty down if that's you know what you're comparing yourself to this day emotionally.
Yeah, man. Every one of you have seen the Unbreakable trilogy. The final movie is called Glass, and it's a great movie, but there's a scene in there where Samuel L. Jackson's character basically goes in the room of the antagonist. And, the antagonist is a bad person in the movie, but the fact of the matter is, it's hard for me to explain the movie, but that person was feeling down on themselves, hopeless, didn't believe in themselves anymore, didn't know if there was a way out. And I'm of the same belief. I just don't know anymore. And I don't know that there's a way out. I don't know if anything's ever going to get fixed. If I were to guess, I don't think things will ever get fixed. Things have crossed into my mind, and I feel like Michael. I'm
Jay,
going
let
off.
me ask you a deeper probe on that question. Are you
Okay.
stating that you feel that that is the case under Ryan Day, or are you stating that you feel that that is the case at Ohio State in general?
I think it's an Ohio State case.
Okay.
That's where I was leading with that.
So
That's
you've given up
that's
all hope on the program for your lifetime.
I'm very close, man. I mean, considering what we saw at the end of Urban Meyer,
Yeah.
and I mean, I did think Jim Tressel was starting to figure something out in his final couple seasons, and then he got that ripped away from him. Urban Meyer, let's be real, he won with Jim Tressel's players. He won us that title, but then after that, literally like the 3 or 4 seasons after that, it was a bunch of underachievement, a lot of hype and a lot of failure. And then
And
you bring in a coach.
he
Oh, go
was
ahead.
making some transitions at the end. I mean, clearly he had seen that the JT Barrett model is not going to win you a national championship, so he was willing to, well, let's try something new. Let's try a guy who can really throw the ball. Now, I think it would have been great if we could have seen him have a happy medium, somebody who could throw the ball pretty well and still have somewhat of a threat with their legs, because he went from like one extreme to the other with Dwayne Haskins. But you know, I mean, Urban's years were great. I mean, as a whole, I mean, you'll take any 7-year period like Urban's. Were we greedy and we wanted 2 or 3 national championships because we knew this was a rare breed to get at Ohio State and Urban Meyer? Yeah, we were. I mean, I was. I wanted at least 2. And so the one sometimes makes it seem a little disappointing, but if you put it in context of a 7-year period, we're about to start a new 7-year period. And I tell you, Jay, for the next 7 years, Ohio State's going to be 85-9. They're going to win multiple Big Ten games, top 10 games. They're going to have many or they're going to have several top 5 wins, and they're going to win a national championship in that 7 years. You would say, I'll take that 7 years. I mean, hey, it could be a heck of a lot worse than that. But we were so close, and we've been so close for so long that it's starting to, something's got to give. Like, you've either got to break through, or you've just got to tear the thing down and maybe be willing to go 9-4 one year in order to rebuild something that can get over the hump. Or we can just kind of keep playing this game where we're happy to just stay at the edge, because we don't want to upset the apple cart. Because if we get rid of Ryan Day, then who knows, it could get worse. Well, I don't know, maybe we need it to get worse. Maybe sometimes you have to be willing for it to get worse to find a Nick Saban. Maybe sometimes you have to be willing for it to get worse to find a young Urban Meyer. I don't know. But it doesn't seem that the Ryan Day experiment is yielding different results, Jay. And so, I mean, that leads me kind of into a thought process that I was having today is in this game, if you just isolated it to this game, it wouldn't be that big of a deal. I think we could get on here. We could actually be pretty positive. And I still am going to take a optimistic turn, because that is still a possibility. However, in the, just looking at this game, it's like, okay, there's a lot of things that we could fix here. We don't, give up the 3 points on the kickoff that gets the squib kick. We don't get a ball ripped away at our, and give it to Oregon on the 25-yard line and give up, 6 points. That's 9 points. You gave a really, really good team on the road. Okay, that's fixable. We don't give up those 9 points. We can beat these guys. And all of that is still true. But when you take that and you put it in the bigger backdrop of Ryan Day's career at Ohio State, you see that it's almost becoming a never-ending book of material of how Ryan Day manages to lose these games in unbelievable fashion, time after time, going back all the way to Clemson 2019. And it's happened time after time since then. And it happened again in Eugene, Oregon the other night. And it's like, this is really starting to define this guy. And it's really starting to become concerning. Can this guy get beyond this, or is this just who he is?
If this, if that, that's a lot of ifs, Michael. If your aunt had balls, she'd be your uncle. And the fact of the matter is, it's just a number of excuses all the time. The Ryan Day apologists are out of control. And I think really for the first time, these people have finally, after years of seeing just failure at so many levels, that they're starting to come around.
Jay, let me ask you a question.
Okay.
If Ryan Day wins against Georgia in 2022 and beats TCU and is the national champion, and then the next year comes back and beats Michigan and loses to Alabama, and then this year, we have this. Are you looking at Ryan Day differently if he'd had those kind of successes that he could at least hang his hat on, as opposed to just a long string of failure? I mean, if he had a time where his team elevated, because we've never seen the Ryan Day team elevate. We've never seen a Ryan Day team like turn it on and hit the fifth gear. His teams don't do that. They can hit fifth gear like in a game, and then the next game they're back in fourth gear. And then maybe a game later they might hit fifth gear for a little bit, and they'll kind of go in and out of it just like within a game, but they never hit this thing where they're just playing like a force to be reckoned with. And that's what the great coaches are able to produce. That's what Urban Meyer produced at Florida. That's what he was able to produce that 1 year at Ohio State. That's what Nick Saban and Kirby Smart are able to produce. Their team early in the season is not indicative of the monster you're going to face game 11, 12, 13, because those teams develop and those teams grow. It's what Bill Belichick had. It's the sign of a great coach. And I think it's becoming clear that Ryan Day's not a great coach. He might be a pretty good coach, but he's not a great coach by any means.
I haven't seen any evidence that he's a pretty good coach, Michael. I would say every bit of evidence leads to he's a very good recruiter. Actually, I would put him as a great recruiter. It masks a lot of deficiencies he has as a head coach, a CEO, an authoritarian, because you kind of have to be authoritative as a college football head coach. And again, he's like a typical politician. He says all the right things in front of the camera, but his actions don't back that up at all. I would say, again, I've said it before, I don't think he's a particularly intelligent person because he's done the same thing for years and hasn't changed. So he obviously is not learning from his mistakes. I know he's made some coaching changes, but again, he's still the head guy in charge, and he has the final say so on how the defenses run, how the offenses run. Yeah, there are guys calling plays and stuff, but they're out of an umbrella of what he wants to do.
Yeah.
And that's the biggest problem.
Yeah, he sets the tone. I mean, there's no doubt about that. He sets the tone. He's the guy at the top. And when I was saying pretty good coach, as far as a college football coach goes, I include recruiting as part of their grade. So I mean, recruiting is in my mind with a college football coach very much part of their grade as a coach, because that's a huge part of the job. So that's why I said I think you could say he might be pretty good because he does recruit so well that he's able to win at a high level, but he's just not a good enough coach to get that talent to be able to win the evenly matched games. I mean, that's the bottom line. The guy can't win evenly matched games. He can't win games when the talent gap is closed. He just doesn't do it. He has a miserable record at it. And I mean, to his credit, he's not lost any games that he shouldn't, but he never wins a game that he probably should, or that he might even be at a little deficit going into the game where we're an underdog. He just doesn't win those games.
Lacks attention to detail in the biggest games and the biggest moments, Michael, to add on to what you're saying. Yeah, he cannot win these games for a reason. Whatever can go wrong will go wrong by this program in these games. The false starts, the lack of tackling, lack of downfield passing, special teams disasters, lack of clock management. The guy just has no clue and was hired without a legit coaching search by an affirmative action worst athletic director in Ohio State history, Gene Smith. He is one of the last remains of the old athletic director, Gene Smith's work. Hiring Chip Kelly was a Band-Aid on a program, in my opinion, that has, at this point, a total lack of institutional control from a discipline standpoint on the football field. 1-7 against top 5 teams. Why is this guy still here? Gene Smith is why. Ross Bjork has no relationship with Ryan, personally. So here's hoping when Ryan does get fired, because I don't see him surviving after this year, Bjork really has to get an elite guy to take over. So yeah, man, I mean, the biggest thing that stands out with Ryan Day, to recap all of that, is just the lack of attention to detail. His teams aren't prepared, on again, what is it? John Madden used to say, luck is when preparation meets opportunity.
Yeah, absolutely.
They don't get lucky because they don't have preparation. They just don't prepare well.
No, it's 100%. When you're just a little bit underprepared, you don't ever get lucky because you're just a little behind the curve. You're just trying to catch up ever so slightly, and in a closely matched game, that doesn't cut it. Now, Jay, before we move on to whatever else you want to discuss, let me make the case for Ryan Day's redemption, because there is a path for him. And so until that path is totally snuffed out, I'm at least going to be open that path is still a possibility. Anything can happen. I have learned in my life, never say never, because you just never know. But there is a path. He has a big game against Nebraska. Is it a huge game? Should he win the game by 3 touchdowns? Yes, he should, but he's got a game against Nebraska. He's got something to prove. He's got a big game coming up against Penn State at Happy Valley. Is Penn State an elite top 2 or 3 team? No. Is Penn State probably legitimately a top 5, definitely a top 6 team in this year's college football? Yes, they are. So that's a good opportunity to go do something substantial on the road. Then you've got, of course, to beat Michigan, which maybe they'll be a top 25 team. Maybe they won't be. You've got Indiana. They could be a top 15 team, probably definitely going to be a top 20 team by the time you play them. And then you get to go to Indianapolis and play Oregon. And this isn't the Big Ten of old where if you're winning the Big Ten, you haven't seen the best team in the country yet. Like that's how it used to be for years. If you win the Big Ten, if you're going to the Big Ten title, you're not facing the best team in the country on the other side of that because you're facing Iowa or you're facing even Northwestern as we did in 2020 because it was the old Big Ten East versus the Big Ten West. And of course, we've got new teams in the Big Ten, new coaches. Dan Lanning, I said he's an SEC guy. He understands what it takes to do it, and he is doing it. And they are that level team. They are that caliber team. So you go and face one of the best teams in the country. Are they the best? Are they the second best? Are they the third best? Are they the fourth best? I don't know, but they're one of those. And so you go and you beat them. And now you're a number one. You're probably a number two, maybe even a number one, at the lowest a number 3 seed with a bye going into the playoffs. And if you go in the playoffs and make some noise and they won a national championship, then I mean Ryan Day is redeemed. Ryan Day has a legacy at Ohio State. Does it change much of the stuff you said that he's not a great coach with attention to? No, it doesn't change any of that. None of that would change. But none of that would have changed with John Cooper either. And John Cooper might have won the Final Four if they'd have had one in 1998. It was possible. He could have done it with that team. With the competition that was there. Florida State with a third string quarterback and a UT Vols team that wasn't amazing. So my point is, it can happen. Do I think it's likely? I don't think it's likely because you've got too many games against good teams that the Ryan Day effect could take over and end up blowing one of them, whether they beat Oregon in the Big Ten championship and then they win one playoff game and then lose in the semifinal, or whether they win 2 playoff games and it hits them in the final. The chances are high that the Ryan Day big game bug is going to hit, but you never know. This is a very talented team, and this is a very flawed college football season as far as the top 10 teams in the country.
Biggest problem with all of that, Michael, is Ohio State wasn't supposed to be a flawed team. They're a $20 million roster. They basically got a whole bunch of really impactful guys in the transfer portal, and they still are having the same problems. Like Ryan Day has run out of excuses, and you're a lot more optimistic about the Big Ten than I am. I mean, in my God honest opinion, the rest of the season is not exciting. It's borderline irrelevant because the Big Ten still isn't very good. Yeah, Penn State is a solid team, but they are not a talented team. Again, this is terrible to say, but the only thing that really matters is if, and this is a big if, because we know Ryan Day, he's going to underperform against Penn State. He's going to underperform against Indiana. He's going to underperform against Michigan. All 3 of those games could be losses. The problem is, he's got to show that he can beat teams of like talent that are ranked in the top 5. None of the teams before Oregon are in that caliber.
No, but he has to do it in Happy Valley to get another chance, Jay. That's what I'm saying. I'm not saying a win in Happy Valley absolves him. It doesn't. But a win in Happy Valley and a win against Oregon in the Big 12 in the Big Ten championship is something that's significant. At least we're Big Ten champs again. And it's not the Big Ten of old. If we beat Oregon, we got a chance because the difference in the Big Ten this year is, and years past, is it's not a doubt in my mind Oregon would beat Alabama and Georgia right now. They would beat Alabama and Georgia right now. There's not a doubt in my mind that Oregon would play a very competitive game with Texas and very capable of beating them. There's no doubt in my mind that Penn State could compete with Alabama and Georgia. I don't know that they would beat them, but they could play right there with them. And we haven't had that in the Big Ten in years. Since I was a young man is the last time the Big Ten was able to match up with some slugfest heavyweights against the SEC and possibly even have the best couple of teams in the country. It's been years since that's happened. And I think that I really believe that we are potentially there this year.
You say all of that, but then you run into basically the same situation you did in last year's Cotton Bowl and against a Missouri team that you were like, yeah, they're vulnerable. We can beat them. Yeah, they're an SEC team, and we can beat them because we look better than them all year. We have more talent, and we lost. We lost 14-3. Should have been worse. So I don't.
Well, I mean, we did have
Ryan.
we did have a freshman quarterback, but that it wasn't that we lost that bothered me so much about that game. It was that Ryan Day essentially gave up. That there was still a chance and opportunity to compete with that team, even with the quarterback issues. But he just kind of threw the towel in. That's what really disgusted me about that game. I mean, do I think with McCord that they are going to be able to beat Missouri if they hold Missouri to 14 or 17 points? Yeah, I do. But again, that's not, where we're wanting to be either, is beating Missouri. I mean, Missouri, yeah, they had a nice little season last year. Let's look where they are this year. They're probably not going to make the playoffs. They're probably not a top 12 team. They're not a top 12 program. So, it's really just more of a slap in the face.
But the problem is Ohio State lost to them when we played them. Yeah, all of those things are true. I completely agree. But Ohio State, they lose those games. Like they make these, it's always like against Ohio State, these teams break through. Oregon breaks through, winning their best game ever at home against Ohio State. Missouri breaks through against Ohio State. It's always against Ohio State. Why can't it be against another team? It's because Ryan Day sucks. It's because our program just doesn't win most big games throughout our history. This isn't just Ryan Day. Look throughout history. We mostly lose these games more so than we win.
Yeah, there's been a problem with it. It's why I look forward to playing more SEC teams, because it's time for that problem to be solved. Now, are we always going to beat the SEC? No. But if you put Ohio State in the SEC with a lot of those SEC schedules, they're going to beat a hell of a lot of SEC teams, is what Ohio State's going to do. But there's this stigma that if it comes out of the SEC, it's bigger, it's faster, it's stronger. What I'm saying is that's not the case this year. And so in the Tressel years, in the Urban years, if you've got a Big Ten team beating you, like let's say it's not a slip up, but they're just flat better than you, well, you're not going to be able to compete with the SEC, because the best team that you will face is still over there in the SEC. I'm saying that's not necessarily the case this year. Ohio State could go into the playoffs playing at least one team that is as good or better as any of those SEC teams, and potentially even another team that is right there on the same par with them. We'll get into that in the Penn State game, but I'm telling you, Drew Aller came alive in that USC game. Look for a new Drew Aller from here on out. I saw why he was ranked a 5-star. He stopped playing scared and started letting it rip, and the kid is good. So that's kind of a dangerous thing for Ohio State, that I feel, and we'll see if I'm right, that he's kind of grown up and matured and kind of come into himself a bit, because he failed. It's obvious the kid's been terrified of failing. He played scared against us. He played so scared and tight. And he threw a couple of early interceptions. Like the kid finally said, to heck with it. I'm going to just let it rip. And you started to see why he had such a high ranking out of high school. You started to see the ability that he has. And quite frankly, with Burke, he's got a ripe target to go after. And so that can kind of lead us into some of the issues of this game, Jay, whatever you want to talk about. The floor is yours.
I want to preface this by saying, before we get into some things here, a little bit more detailed, Michael, I've said last year, we really did in the Michigan episode last year address this, but I have definitely said it on this year's podcast, in that Ohio State, I said it after the Akron game. Go back and watch it, everyone. I said Ohio State, they are what they are, right after that game. And the fact of the matter is, the game plan that they ran against Akron was the same game plan they ran against Oregon. It really was no different. They are what they are. Things won't change. You basically always have to ask yourself, is this good enough to win a national championship? And I was saying, I don't think it is. So let's start with the offense, Michael. Let's just start with the offense. Go ahead, real quick.
And Jay, I mean, I think that even kind of fits into the two different options that I kind of set up earlier in the episode. Is if Ryan Day had a history of success and he had a national championship under his belt or something, or I mean, like Nick Saban, if Nick Saban has a game like this on the road, you're like, yeah, they're fine. But With Ryan Day, you don't have that level of confidence because, like you said, these things don't change. They just keep happening over and over. The team doesn't galvanize and get better at any point. It is the first week, pretty much what it is the 10th week. Maybe tighten a few little things up here or there, but you just don't see that dramatic improvement that you see out of teams that make championship runs.
Yeah, yeah, man. I agree. Just they are again. They are what they are as a team. They don't get better as the year goes along. They pretty much stay the same. While other teams may not be getting better, but they are getting better at preparing for Ohio State. So, Michael, let's just break down a little bit of the Ohio State offense. First off, still no downfield passing game. If it didn't happen in the early games, like I said before, it wasn't going to happen here. The running game was fine until Josh Simmons, rest in peace to him because he's out for the year, by the way, went out and then it declined.
The only good news, Jay, is it probably means he's going to be coming back next year.
Hopefully with a new coach. Jordan Birch didn't play. Remember that guy I hyped about?
Yeah.
Like all of the Oregon preview, best defensive lineman between both teams, didn't even play. How fucking sad is that? The best player on both teams didn't even play. And we expect to be able to, even if we make the Big Ten championship game again, by the grace of God, you can't convince me Ohio State can win with him playing and Josh Simmons not. It's just there is no path to victory there. I really don't see it. Wide receivers were fine, but little plays down, the little plays down the field with no QB, no downfield throws without a QB who can make those throws really, was a problem. A QB with a good arm hits Jeremiah Smith in stride in the third quarter, and he wins that race instead of setting up for a touchdown later on. Because if you notice, Jeremiah Smith was like 2 yards behind the Oregon defenders on that one deep throw, and Howard just couldn't get it out there. And just lastly about the offense, the game was lost offensively when Will Howard fumbled the snap after we got pinned at the 1. I think it was either late in the third, early in the fourth. We actually had gotten a first down. We're moving the ball a little bit, and Howard fumbled the third down snap. He just let it go through his hands. And right then and there, it's like, fuck, man, we're not going to win this game. And again, you don't say that out loud, but you think it in the back, deepest, darkest parts of your brain. And it's just the lack to attention to detail, Michael, not being able to execute, not being able to catch a simple snap in a big game. Like things like that add up. And like it's the simple things. It's the simple things under Ryan Day that go without saying that just cannot be executed or done by players on his team under his watch.
Well, I mean, there's certainly things to say about the offense, and quite frankly, the offensive line didn't block that great. We were a little bit hard on our running backs, but as I kind of rewatched some parts of the game, the offensive line didn't block very well. And the offensive line was directly responsible for, what led to that strip. Ultimately, Quinshon's responsible for getting stripped, but they were trying to double team a guy, and the guy dominated the double team, gets Quinshon, strips the ball. If they can get any movement on that double team right there, then that play doesn't happen. So that play doesn't happen, and Ohio State wins the game. So that was a problem up front, that directly led to the loss. I mean, there's many things that directly led to the loss. The squib kick, you could say that directly led to the loss. That was 3. We lost by 1. The clock management towards the end, Ryan Day lets many seconds run off the clock before calling a timeout. Those seconds could have been used to at least what down was it, Jay, when Will Howard went down? Was that 4th down? And he didn't get a first down on that, did he?
Which time specifically?
The last play of the game.
Oh, I don't know that it matters. Time ran out.
But what I'm saying is it shouldn't have ran out. Ryan Day let over 20 seconds run off the clock before he called a timeout after that penalty. It didn't. There was no need for time to have run out right there. It was his clock management is why time ran out. He could have had literally 15, 20 seconds on the clock when Will Howard's knee went down if he would have just called a timeout. 4 additional seconds rolled off of the clock that they did not put back on. Nobody brought it to the officials' attention to bring it back on. I'm not going to really ding Ryan Day for that. That's a really tough thing to catch right in the middle of a game on the sideline when it's, everything going on. But the 15, 20 seconds that he cost him on the timeout, that's directly on him. And so, there's certainly things that could be better on offense. Did Chip Kelly call a perfect game? No. Did Will Howard play? Is he a perfect quarterback? No. But Chip Kelly called a pretty good game, and Will Howard played well. I mean, when the guy throws for 325 yards and 2 touchdowns and no interceptions, and you score 31 points on the road, and you're supposed to have an elite defense, you're supposed to win that freaking game. And so I am really putting it on Jim Knowles. That's where I am really putting the onus on this is you are supposed to have an elite defense, and we score you 31 points on the road, and you give up another 500-yard performance, and can't stop anything, and the stat came out today against top 5 teams. Jim Knowles has given up 1,897 yards and 149 points. That averages out to be about 474 and a quarter yards a game and about 37 and a quarter points a game. Jim Knowles is a big problem on the Ohio State coaching staff. What do we think, Rage, that it's a mystery that he's so terrible in big games? When we hired a guy who didn't know anything about big games, there's not big games really at Duke and Oklahoma State and the Ivy League. You don't really have big games there. So are we shocked that this guy's not a good big game coach? He's 60 years old, and these are the first big games he's ever been in his career. We should have hired a guy that had DC next to his name on his resume at Big Ten schools, at SEC schools, at both guys who had success in the Big Ten and the SEC. Those are the kind of defensive coordinators we should be hiring, not a guy from the Big 12. We were trying to stop having a Big 12 offense. We had turned into a Big 12 offense, and we hire a guy from the Big 12 with no kind of pedigree to come in and fix it. And yet another big game, and the defense woefully underperforms.
Yeah, I'm going to do a deep dive into the defense here in literally 1 minute. I just want to recap the offense. 2 things. Number 1, there was a drive at the end of the first half. Oregon had retaken the lead before halftime. Ohio State was going down the field. They made it to midfield, 3rd and 1. Ryan Day doesn't know his personnel. It's very clear Travion Henderson, while he's a great back, he's not a great short yardage back. It's, Quinshon's definitely better than him there.
100%.
But who do they run? Who do they run there?
Yeah,
they run fucking Travion.
I know.
And that it's just know your fucking personnel. That's something that just goes without saying. Get Quinshon in the game. Yeah, is it a little? I mean, if a defensive team has really studied the players and stuff, would they know? Oh yeah, Quinshon's in the game. Get ready for a run. But that was a failure. That was a failure by the staff not knowing the personnel.
If that was his thinking, then that's classic Ryan Day. Out.
Well, yeah, Ryan Day's a dumb motherfucker, and there's somebody else who's a dumb motherfucker too, and I'm gonna get to them. Number 2, I know you were referencing the end of the game. It was an iffy call on the offensive pass interference. I do not really know the rule, honestly. The problem is for Ohio State to be in this position, having as many mistakes as they did throughout the game, they didn't deserve any of the benefit of the doubt there. None at all. They deserve to lose that game. And, fuck Ryan Day. It's probably better that he lost anyway. Fuck him. I don't know if I really want to see the guy succeed. And to be honest with you, Michael, I'm not sure it's really a good. This is me ranting even more into the weeds, but I don't even think it's a good thing for Ohio State. Even if they were to turn the season around, I don't know that it's a good thing to go and win the national championship because Because then
Yeah.
we would be stuck with Ryan Day. We would be
I
stuck. It's like we would be like literally John Cal. He's literally he's essentially John Calipari of basketball. John Calipari got that one national
yeah.
championship with Kentucky. He had the most talented roster ever. But then after that, it was a bunch of underachievements. Took them a long time to get out of like not the dregs for Kentucky basketball. Let me put it that way. I sense a very similar thing with Ryan Day. I think winning a national championship, would buy him another 3 or 4 years. Of course it would. But I think that would be bad for Ohio State because I don't see them winning another title unless they're going to be forking out $20 to $30 million a year on a roster. I don't see that happening. I do not see that happening.
It might not, but I mean, I would always take one when I could get it. I mean, even if it meant 3 more years of Ryan Day, like I'd gladly take the national title because I don't think
I see that too.
I don't think he's going to fall off like so bad, but I do think that you're right. He's probably going to start having 10-3 seasons and then he's going to get fired and there's still going to be a nice load of talent for hopefully a good coach to come in and coach up and continue to recruit. And, that could be maybe the ideal situation, maybe Ryan Day being able to win a national championship with this and then kind of, his, just kind of who he is as a coach taking over the next 2 or 3 years and then, then time to move on. I mean, same scenario. If you told me, if Ryan Day, let's say he has 8 or 9 years at Ohio State, if you say, hey, you got 9 years, your record's going to be this, it's like a super good record and you're going to win a national championship, I'd be like, okay, well, I'll take that. I mean, that certainly could be a whole lot worse than that. Now, if you'd have told me the 1-7 against top 5 teams, I guess it'd have to be better than 1-7 for him to end up winning a national championship. If you told me the 1-7 stat, I'd be like, oh, that's pretty rough. I mean, it's almost getting like absurd, Jay. I mean, that the guy cannot be the top 5 team.
It was absurd a couple of years ago. I was calling for this man to be fired post Georgia 2022. And I've had to deal with this just destruction on my life for the last couple of years because this is not just like affected me like watching Ohio State. It's affected me in my personal everyday life because it just drags me down. It doesn't make me an overall like overly happy person. It sucks, man. It sucks because most people just don't understand how big Ohio State is. Ohio State is a religion in our state. And, most people are just never going to understand the passion that we have for this program and how much it really takes away from our souls when they fail, when they fail like this, man. And again, we don't like to come to you guys talking about this. I wish this was Michael, I know we're really getting off here, but I have seen a lot of people coming to watch this podcast within the last 24 hours because Ohio State lost. I mean, again, I'm glad people are coming to us for like some truth here, but I would be so much happier if people came to us when Ohio State was winning, when Ohio State, if they were winning big games. They're not winning big games, but if they were winning big games, I would love for us to be a more optimistic podcast. I would love for us to be a beacon of light and a force of good, but we're not. We're not, man. We're just realistic, passionate fans, and we would be a bunch of sellouts if we just told you what you wanted to hear. We're not like that. We are not Buckeye Scoop. We are not the Ohio State podcast. We are not Bucknuts. We are not those podcasts. I've said this. We exist because those exist. Those places aren't giving you the real truth. We don't have any affiliation with Ohio State. And to be honest, Michael, I think there's an argument you said that our podcast is the most passionate Ohio State podcast there is overall. Yeah, there are some people that are as passionate as us in those podcasts, but as a podcast itself, everyone that's, in this show is just me and you. I have a hard time believing that anyone can match us.
Well, I think that, the difficulty of the Ohio State podcast space has been they're very good and they win most of their games. And you have a lot of people, you have some of the big names in that space that all they do is pump, that we're good and we're doing all these things and we're going to win national championships. And I think that that's the one thing that we have been on the cutting edge about is pointing out the flaws that Ohio State program has had under Ryan Day, and pointing out how those flaws are going to have to be fixed, or it's going to be hard to overcome, because national championship teams typically don't have these flaws. And so we're not football coaches. We're not we're not the last authority on X's and O's. Obviously, Ryan Day and his staff know more about all of that kind of stuff than we do. That's not the point. We're just observants that see certain connections that other fans, for some reason, don't make. And, it's taken a long time for people to begin to come around to the fact that some of the things we're saying are right, because they just continue to happen over and over. And you're right. We're not saying them because it makes us happy. We would be as happy as anybody if Ohio State turned it around, won a national championship. It's just hard to see that, because that means that Ryan Day is going to have to beat 5 really good teams to do that. And his record's 1-7 against the top 5. He's going to have to beat potentially 5 top 5-ish type teams, because he's got to beat Penn State. He's got to beat Oregon. He's going to have to beat somebody in the first round. And then by the time you get to the second and third round, you're going to be facing those teams in the top 5. More than likely, maybe one from 6 or 7 or 8 might slip in there, but probably going to be top 5. And it's just hard to envision him being able to beat 5 of those throughout the rest of this season, when he's managed to go 1-7 in his previous entire career. And there's a reason why he's 1-7. There's all these reasons that we've outlaid over and over ad nauseum. And those reasons are continuing to manifest in these big games. And so he's actually 2-7, Jay, but I don't give him credit for the 1, because he beat a top 5 Notre Dame team that ended up going 9-4. So that's why I say, some people will give him credit for that, some won't. I don't, because he didn't beat a top 5 team that night in South Bend. He beat a 9-4 team.
Yeah, I can't disagree with you, man. I think I was giving him the benefit of the doubt back then and giving him that win, but I don't know that I do anymore. It's just unfortunate that the apologists are always trying to find something. Oh, well, we were kind of screwed over by the officials, or, if the Ohio State just catches the ball there, I mean, we win. And then they try and spin it up like it didn't happen, and they're just gaslighting you. We're not gaslighting you over here.
This is the one I love the best, Jay. Ryan Day didn't play defense. Wait, well, no. Of course he didn't.
Have you ever watched that Ohio State podcast? It's called The Ohio State Podcast. I watch it every now and then.
I listen to it every now and then.
Austin Ward.
Mm-hmm.
Do you realize? Do you know what? I don't know what the score is. I know Austin Ward predicted Ohio State to win this game. Do you know how much he predicted them to win by?
Well, yeah, I do. He predicted them to win by 2 touchdowns, didn't he?
I think if I'm not mistaken, he predicted them to win by like 28 points.
Are you kidding?
Again, don't quote me on it, but I was listening, and again, I was like maybe doing something else, but even if he was predicting them to win by 17 points, that is just an outrageous, stupid claim. And how that guy has a job. Actually, I know how he has a job. He has Ryan Day's dick down his mouth most of the day, just sucking him off. That's how he has a job.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's kind of what he's there for, is just to put out the happy talk.
I feel bad for Jeremy Birmingham that he has to work with somebody so unprofessional like that, because Jeremy Birmingham is a real pro. And, I met him once. He's a good guy. I've heard Austin Ward is kind of a dick. Don't quote me on it. I haven't met him, but I can tell you that I've met Jeremy Birmingham a few years ago. Really awesome guy.
I have heard Austin Ward is kind of an in-crowd type of guy. Like he really likes that he's part of the in-crowd, and if you're not in that, he's kind of a jerk. I've definitely heard that.
Yeah, I don't know.
But, so be it. Who cares? Maybe he's a great guy. Don't know him, but you
could always go to your boy Dan Rubin on Bucknuts and listen to him, Michael. Your boy Dan Rubin.
But that's one of the
another stupid bitch.
That's one of the more ridiculous takes I've ever heard. If he thought they were just going to go into Eugene and blow him out, like who in the world would pick that? Like, I mean, you go in and you definitely picked that to be a close game. If there was a blowout, like, then that's just a super surprising low probability
Well,
event.
I mean, again, I picked Ohio State to win, but like I said on the last episode, I was thinking Oregon was going to win all day, and the only thing that tipped the meter was Oregon's lack of size at DB. I thought Ohio State would have done more in the passing game, but I guess I even me, I underestimated Ryan Day and even Will Howard's ability to fuck things up. So again, let's move on. I know you wanted to talk about the defense, and I'm going to touch on them now because, yeah, man. I mean, you really hit on a lot of things there with the defense. The biggest thing I can think of is same old Jim Knowles. Same thing as before. Jim Knowles is terrible. We know this. I mean, I don't know what else I can say at this point. I mean, the lack of blitzing, coverage, and tackling, nothing new here. He was a terrible hire. They should have gotten DJ Durkin, but again, it's Ryan Day. What connections does Ryan Day even have to get somebody of that caliber? Yeah, DJ Durkin is from Ohio, but Ryan Day's not from Ohio. Ryan Day's only connection is up to the Northeast. What good football is up there in the fucking Northeast, Michael? Like, no, just curious. I want to know your opinion. The Northeast, like, again, we have Boston College on his resume, I think, and he has some NFL. Like, where are his big time connections to get the big time guys here?
His big time connection is Chip Kelly. I mean, that's his big time connection. He played for him there at New Hampshire. And there happens to be, I think, Chip Kelly, Ryan Day, and Dan Mullins all happen to be from that town in New Hampshire. And so it does kind of have like this little lore of being a coaching town and somehow producing these coaches. And I'm not doubting that there wasn't some good coaches that were produced there. And obviously all three of those guys, you would say, have made it in the coaching realm. Yeah, I mean, there's not a whole lot of great football anywhere else. And no, Ryan Day was never a head coach anywhere. So he never made those kind of alliances of bringing guys in and hiring guys. And, he had a meteoric rise. I mean, he went from, Chip Kelly's kind of, guy there in the NFL. And then he caught on with the 49ers as well. And he was at Boston College and had Matt Ryan there. And, and then all of a sudden Urban brings him in at Ohio State. And I have to say, Urban had a knack for that. It was a brilliant move. He was a great offensive coordinator. I mean, he took the stagnant Ohio State offense and improved it year one with JT Barrett, and then took it to a totally different level the next year with JT Barrett, and the Michigan game that he called, and all of the crossing routes and the things he did to keep that defense off balance was impressive. But it's clear he wasn't ready to be a head coach. And, and he's still, it's like he had so much to learn that he's trying to continue to learn from all of these mistakes that he makes. And he keeps making like new ones, the clock management, all of the little small stuff that he didn't get worked out at somewhere like Mississippi State for 5-6 years, who wanted him when Urban Meyer was leaving. That's who we didn't want to lose him to, was Mississippi State. And I've said for years, we should have let him go to Mississippi State, see what he can do on his own. And then if our hire didn't work out, we go back to him once he's seasoned and once but no, we didn't do that. I just don't know if he's ever going to be able to figure it all out at this level with all of the pressure and the things that he has at him. And I will say this, Ryan Day's had a difficult job because he's had all of this thrown on him. And he said the NIL changes and everything. And I'm not saying it's been easy. And I'm not saying that he doesn't have a heck of a lot of stuff to deal with. All I'm saying is it just seems he wasn't quite ready for
it. Yeah, I agree, man. It's just, yeah, no, yeah, you're right. Back to the scheme. I'm at such a loss, man, after this game. Sometimes I just don't even know what to say. This is a completely unscripted episode. Yeah, we have some bullet points, but this is the same rehash stuff we've said before, man. Again, like,
Yeah, just put it on repeat. They
yeah,
didn't put any
well,
pressure on them.
go find our old episodes, man. We break it down,
But here, I got a way to dive into the defense, Jay.
Okay.
What did both you and I, like, we did not know what the each other was going to say the other day when we did a little offense and defense exchange. And so, I said, lead with the running game to open up the passing game. I think you were right on that. You had to pass. The offensive line just wasn't opening up fantastic holes. And then on defense, both of us said, you have to get after Gabriel. You can't just let him sit in a clean pocket. He's a very capable quarterback. You're going to have to try to take some risk and get him off script, get him off kilter. And they did that early. And early in the game, I remember they got after him and they sent a blitz and they didn't get home, but it rushed him and he missed a crossing route. He threw it high. Those are the kind of things you had to do. And then they just didn't do them. Like, they just stopped. They just played basic defense and let him sit back there in a clean pocket and, do what he does.
Yeah, well, yeah, they did blitz some on Oregon's first drive. And again, when we did the breakdown, and one thing we need to stop doing, Michael, we need to stop thinking what Ohio State should do and start putting ourselves in what we expect them to do. There's a difference. Yeah, we know what they need to do for the most part to win, but that doesn't mean that's what they're going to do.
Yeah.
We should be able to, understand. And, we've said this loosely this year, maybe a little bit more direct at the end of last season, but, they're going to rush forward the soft zone the entire game. That's what they do. They did blitz some on Oregon's first drive and forced them to punt. Didn't return to doing that until a few times in the second half, but that was only like, 2 times, 3 times. Cody Simon missed tackles. Man, he had a really bad game tackling. I mean, against, again, that running back. I mean, there's an argument to be made. He was the best running back on the field, not taking that away from him. But, they were able to tackle our guys. Why can't we tackle their guy? Caleb Downs still not being used correctly. I don't even know why they even got him in the offseason. They don't use him. He should transfer back to Alabama because even though Kalen DeBoer is kind of struggling there, they are still a more exciting team and a more fun team to watch than Ohio State. Ohio State's not a particularly fun team to watch. Alabama at least spreads it out, throws it around the field, and they play in the SEC. So it's going to be a funner team.
Well, and their defense is also it's not very good, but I mean,
no,
they do try to be aggressive. I mean, that's the nature of most of the defenses in the South, and they
play better offenses down there though too. Yeah, are any of the offenses as good as Oregon? Maybe Texas is. Georgia probably is, but outside of those two teams, it's well, again, that's two teams there that have those quality of offenses, including Alabama. It's 3 teams in the SEC that have those quality of offenses. Oregon is the only one in the Big Ten. I mean, Penn State's good, but you can see it in their skill positions. They lack overall speed there. I mean, USC is not, they're not a great defense. They're solid, but I mean, they're I don't even think they were ranked heading into that game, and people were trying to act like Penn State won some great game. USC wasn't even fucking ranked.
No, they weren't, but I mean, they're a quality opponent on the road. So I mean,
I guess. Tui Malau and Jack Sawyer, man, complete missing in action. Same with Tyleik Williams, man. I didn't see anything from him. Where's Caden McDonald? Did Caden McDonald even fucking play? I don't think he did. Defensive line was completely missing in action. Yeah, the scheme really sucks, but Knowles should know that these guys can't get home only rushing 3 and 4.
Well,
what is he doing?
And Knowles has got this thing he's done this year where he drops an end back in coverage and sends Sonny Styles or something. And why on earth would you do that? I mean, why send a 230-pound guy against a 330-pound guy? I mean, that's not going to really do much most of the time. So yeah, I just don't get, he just doesn't, and I'm not an expert on the 4-2-5, and I'm not going to pretend that I am, but he just doesn't have enough creative looks out of it I mean, I know the Bengals run a 4-2-5, and back when they had good talent, they were able to disguise blitzes from their safeties and from their corners and various places, and they were able to wreak havoc that way out of that 4-2-5. But it's just Knowles doesn't seem to have much to offer in that regard. I don't really know what the Jim Knowles system is. It's just kind of like a basic defense that there's no real distinction as to what he brings to the table.
I tell you what, man, if I were running the 4-2-5 with Caleb Downs, I would have Caleb Downs like close to the line of scrimmage probably every play. I would have him firing off the ball. It would be almost like a 5-2, but it would be a safety and Caleb Downs off the edge and use him as to really create pressure and stuff. But that's just me thinking off the top of my head, man. That was completely unscripted in this thing. But if I were to run the 4-2-5 with with Caleb Downs, I would be bringing him off the edge. Yeah, that's going to leave Lathan Ransom in the middle of the field by himself a lot. But you know what I do? I put Jordan Hancock in Lathan Ransom's spot. And you know who I put in Jordan Hancock's spot from there, Michael?
Mm-hmm.
I probably put Jermaine Matthews there. But, maybe we should put somebody else there because you know who Jermaine Matthews really needs to take over for right now?
Burke.
Denzel fucking Burke, man. No words can describe the debauchery, the despicable play from this scholarship player. Honestly, he should be kicked off the team for that. He should be kicked off the fucking team for a performance like that. I can't remember the last. Actually, I do. I guess it was Shaun Wade against Alabama, and he reminds me of Shaun Wade, man. He fucking sucks. I mean, I've said for a while he's overrated, but now he just flat out fucking sucks, Michael. Yeah. Blown coverages, missed tackles. He's slow. He's not physical. Tez Johnson and Evan Stewart made him their bitch. And I feel bad for Jermaine Matthews. And he has every right to be upset. That is despicable by him. It is despicable by these coaches to continue to put him in the game because he is not an Ohio State caliber corner. He is not. The evidence has been there since his freshman year. And then in 2022 against Georgia. And then 2023 against Michigan. And then in Missouri in the bowl game. How many fucking times does this guy need to get beat in big games to understand he's not very good? He shouldn't be fucking out there. Now I'm really pissed off because I've been mostly in a really depressed state, but that just really fucking upsets me, Michael.
Now, Jay, the beat has told us that he's a first-round corner. I mean, how untrue is that? I mean, that's not even close. I mean, this guy's not a first-round corner or a second-round corner. I mean, you said you compared him to who? Who'd you compare him to?
I compared him to Shaun Wade, but at the end of the day, Shaun Wade is long, and I think Shaun Wade actually had good speed, but Shaun Wade just had no awareness of how to play corner. He was just an athlete trying to play football. Denzel Burke doesn't even have the size or length to be, he's 5'11".
Yeah, and Shaun Wade ended up being like a 6th round pick. So I mean, Denzel Ward's probably going to be lucky to be a 5th or 6th round pick. And Ransom, he certainly showed that he didn't have breakaway speed because he had an opening to take that missed extra point back, and he just got caught.
I was thinking that. I was thinking that too, and I'm like, yep, he's too slow. He's getting caught.
Yeah. So I mean, and he has problems in coverage at times as well. So maybe there's a real reason there. Maybe there's a speed problem with both of those guys. Jermaine Matthews doesn't have that speed problem. Get him out there and let him try.
Jermaine is a sticky. Again, I said it. I mean, in another show, I don't know what it was, but I mean, at this point in time, I'm putting Jermaine Matthews and Igmanosin as our 2 outside corners. I'm putting Jordan Hancock in Lathan Ransom's spot. Obviously, Caleb Downs. And then at the nickel corner, I don't know, man. I mean, maybe Lorenzo Styles Jr. I mean, he seems to be the one getting a lot of playing time there. Maybe, oh, fuck. The corner from Texas came in from, hold on. It'll give me like two seconds here. I'll tell you exactly who I would put there. I would put, his name escapes me now. He probably should be playing. It's unfortunate he's not. I would put Calvin Simpson Hunt there.
Yeah.
The player from Texas. He was a top, 50 player or so in the top, in the composite. And, he's not playing. And he's supposedly the fastest corner on the roster. Why is he not playing? Why is he not given a chance? Because Ryan Day doesn't use best players.
Yeah, we're told Denzel Burke's a first-round corner. I mean, I don't know.
Dave Biddle said that. Dave Biddle is another one who doesn't know anything about football. I think I was back when I was posting on Bucknuts a long time ago. He was saying something. Oh, Denzel. I was saying like, where are the first rounders on this team? I remember saying coming into the season, yeah, they have solid talent, but where are the first rounders on this defense? And he was like, well, Denzel Burke's a first-round talent. I'm like, no, he's not. No, he's not. Tuimalau isn't. Jack Sawyer is not. Jack Sawyer has played himself out of being a first-round pick. Where are the first-rounders on this defense, Michael? Maybe Caleb Downs, but Caleb Downs isn't going to have the stats if he continues here.
It's the most overrated defense in Ohio State history. I mean, the hype around this defense was Georgia 2021, Michigan 2023, and it is not that. It is not that at all. I mean, that to me is the most disappointing thing of this Ohio State Buckeye team, is that not only does it not look like that they're definitely not an elite defense, it's questionable whether they're a pretty good defense after the other night. I mean, that's
just can't miss that many tackles. You got to create some pressure. You got to be able to cover it. They weren't doing anything right the entire game, Michael. No. The entire it's amazing they only gave up 32 points or whatever it was. How many points was it that they gave up? 32. 32 points. It's amazing they only gave up 32 points because it felt like they should have given up 50.
Yeah.
And it felt like that. I mean, like Oregon was just dicing them all game long. They really had a hard time stopping Oregon.
Well, the defense had a little bend, but not break, and they did stop to a field goal there, and
Oregon missed a field goal. Oregon had 2 botched extra points, or no, they went for 2 once, so you can't count that one. So you could almost like say they left 4 points on the field with the field goal and the missed extra point. Speaking of special teams, though, Michael. The special teams were not terrible, but once again, they were costly. You just can't have a squib kick hit your player, and that player is just not ready for it, man. It's inexcusable and goes back to a lack of attention to detail. They just don't have it collectively as a team. You can't tell me something like that happens to like a Jim Harbaugh coach team and the other team recovers it. I just would like to believe a Jim Harbaugh coach team would be at least know, like, hey, if a squib kick happens and we're in traditional return, hey, the front line, pay attention to what the kick is. And even if the kick is coming at you, get the fuck out of the way and then block the first guy so then the people on the second level can recover it.
What was the special teams accomplishment that we had earlier this year that was so unusual? Like 3 kickoffs kicked out of bounds or something.
That's right. That was a couple weeks ago. There was like 3 kickoffs out of bounds. I mean, go ahead.
Our special teams continue to be, I mean, I've never seen 3 kickoffs out of bounds. Yeah, it wasn't a big game. Yeah, it didn't matter. Whatever. But once again, it's one play, one little thing, but it's a costly thing. That's 3 points and potentially the difference in the game.
Yeah, man. It's just, like I was saying,
we lost it. We lost a possession, Jay. I mean, we totally lost a possession.
Yeah, that's when Oregon really seized the game. And again, Ohio State still had chances after that, but I mean, that just can't happen, man. That can't happen. And here, Michael, one thing I was thinking about, I'm thinking about Ohio State's last drive of the game when they were going in to possibly win it. And I was like, and I said to myself, and I even told my wife this sitting there, I'm like, even when Ohio State made it to like the 29, 28 yard line, I'm like, they're going to have to keep throwing the ball and not running it because I just don't trust the kicker and I don't trust our running game at that point in the game. But here's the thing, Michael. Does the dynamic change with play calling if Ohio State goes and gets the Miami of Ohio, Lou Groza award-winning kicker, Graham Nicholson, the kicker from Dayton, Ohio, in their backyard, gets him to come to Ohio State? Does the dynamic play calling wise change? And then they do run the ball 2 times, maybe get 4 yards at best. Now you're looking at a 42-yard field goal with the best kicker in the country from the previous year. That's something that goes unnoticed. Ryan Day should have been on this guy, and I said it. How are you not on this kicker and getting him into Columbus, Ohio? Because hell, just having that guy on your roster right there, probably with everything else that went wrong in this game, you probably still win the fucking game with him as your kicker. But they didn't have the trust in Jaden Fielding to make a kick like that in those circumstances.
Yeah. And with that being the case, I can't really fault them for trying to pass the ball. You know, I mean, we were conservative against Georgia a couple of years ago and couldn't hit a 52-yarder. And so if they felt like, well, this guy can't hit a 52-yarder, like it's got to be, 40 to 45 at the longest, then I get it. You got to throw the ball. But you make the salient point that there was a solution to that problem to get a really good kicker and didn't do it. And another small thing that isn't exciting. I don't love like kickers. Like I don't like get super pumped on kicker recruitments. However, if you want to win a national championship, you're going to love kickers because they can make a big difference for you. They can make you or break you.
Yeah, they absolutely can, but kind of like kickers go into like the small details of things, and we know how bad Ryan Day is. Kickers kind of go without saying type thing. Like you expect them, you just expect them to make extra points. You expect them to make medium range field goals. Yeah, 50-yard plus field goals are a cherry on top, but Ohio State doesn't attempt those anyway. They just don't have. Again, it's attention to detail under Ryan Day, man. His programs don't have it. And yeah, man, I'm just Michael. I am just so defeated, and everyone, we're still going to provide content on this podcast, but I just want to be real with everyone. My level of excitement has been completely taken away from this team. Like, I just don't expect them to really do much. I mean, like, yeah, they're going to win games against teams that are more talented than them, but I don't believe that they can beat Oregon in a rematch. I don't believe you can't tell me that anyone is going to have faith in Ryan Day to win 4 consecutive games against teams that are of top 10 caliber. The guy struggles bad enough like now in a single game. And we expect him to go out there and win 4 consecutive games, especially when they don't win the Big Ten championship and win a national championship. Like, it's probably not going to happen, people. Like, it's probably not going to happen. And it really takes away from my just, my attention to detail for the team. I'm just kind of laissez-faire now. I'm just like, I've been kind of resigned. I'm defeated. I'm kind of looking forward to like kind of what the offseason looks like more than the rest of the season because I don't have any faith. I have lost faith, Michael. Like it's gone. It is really gone.
Well, I don't know. I'm going to take it one game at a time, Jay. I'm looking to Nebraska, hoping to see they look sharp. And then obviously my eyes are going to move towards Penn State onto Michigan and hopefully for a rematch. And if they can do it, if they can get through that gauntlet, then I'm going to be going to Indianapolis and I'm going to be wearing my Buckeye gear. And I'm going to be believing that Ryan Day can at least bring the Big Ten championship home back to.
Michael, I think I made mention of this earlier in the show. If not, I said it to you on the phone, but I know we kind of loosely discussed going to the Michigan game together or meeting up there. I don't plan on doing that anymore.
Yeah.
This will be the first Ohio State season since 1998, 99 that I haven't attended a game. Not a regular, like that is unheard of. I used to be the most super fan, go to all the home games. Yeah, when I moved down south, it became harder, but I still attended 2 to 3, 4 games a year. Now, I have no desire to go there. I have no desire to spend my hard-earned money on a product that I don't believe in. Why in the flying fuck would I ever waste my money on a product that all they do is fucking fail? Why? Why? That's a terrible, terrible investment, Michael. Michael, you're a stock expert. Investing in something that's going to fucking lose money? Like, why would I do that? It's almost like I have like foresight to know like if something's going to crash or, elevator fucking crash. Like, I know they're not going to win. Like, why? I mean, fuck, we've already seen it yesterday.
Well, Jay, I mean, I think what we're coming on is very quickly, we're going to find out if Ryan Day is truly John Cooper. And if Ryan Day cannot win the Big Ten.
Okay, he wishes he were John Cooper. John Cooper had better wins than him.
Yeah, if he cannot win the Big Ten with this talent, then I think it's time for Ryan Day to be fired. Now, that's a different topic for a different episode. But in the meantime, I'll be taking it one game at a time, hoping they can play well, hoping they can win the Big Ten, and then getting to the playoffs and seeing what happens. But we're still going to be here going through it game by game on the journey. The journey got a little bit bumpy the other night, but there's always hope, Jay. There's always hope. Hang in there.
I mean, I'm not going to like quit the podcast for anything, people, but what I am saying is my attention to detail just isn't going to be as much because like Ohio State hasn't given me a reason to be. And I mean, I'll still be here for you guys. I'll be watching the games and analyzing the best I can. But my faith is just, I don't know. Maybe I should just go to the Big Ten side and cover Oregon. Michael, Oregon's in the Big Ten now. Oregon fans, I'll be cheering for you. I mean, not that it really is helping Ohio State. Ohio State really didn't improve losing to Michigan last year and spending all that money. So maybe it means them firing Ryan Day. Maybe Ross Bjork can get somebody in here who can really just, again, they need somebody, this is rehash stuff, but Ryan Day came in. He was a part of the program in 2017 and 2018. He didn't really know what elite level of success was because that was at the end of Urban. He wasn't around Urban when Urban had the success in, his earlier years. Actually, let's be real. Urban only had one great season. Even 2015 was a down year, but they did beat Notre Dame in the bowl game.
He was around Urban a little bit in Florida. He was a graduate assistant for him in the Florida years. I don't know which ones.
I will need. Yeah, you are correct about that. But man. I don't know. Fuck, man. I'm out. I don't have anything left, man. I don't have anything left.
There's nothing left to say.
There's nothing left to say.
Just got to see how the rest of the season can play on and how this team can develop and what what potentially can happen. And we'll be here to cover it, and hopefully you'll be here to watch it. And we are glad to be able to get this one wrapped up and to you. And we'll be back with another episode later this week. See you then.